Order. Daily routine, presenting and reading petitions. I recognize the honourable member for Sydney Member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg leave to table a petition with the operative clause reading, whereas power bills in Nova Scotia have increased by hundreds of dollars a year since 2021, placing a growing financial burden on families, seniors, and businesses across the province. And whereas Nova Scotia has some of the least reliable power in Canada, with frequent and prolonged power outages, particularly in rural communities. And whereas Nova Scotia Power experienced a cybersecurity breach in March of 2025 that exposed the personal information of hundreds of thousands of Nova Scotians, we, the undersigned residents of Nova Scotia, call upon the provincial government to initiate an independent public review of Nova Scotia Power, including public hearings to examine the company's rates, reliability, governance, and adherence to provincial laws and regulations. This review must be undertaken to ensure accountability, transparency, and affordability for ratepayers, and two, take strong action to ensure that all Nova Scotians have access to affordable, reliable, and sustainable electricity, including improved oversight accountability of the province's power utility. Madam Speaker, there are 40 signatures on this petition, and as per the rules of the House, I've affixed my own signature.
The petition is tabled. Presenting reports of committees. Tabling reports, regulations, and other papers. I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today I'd like to table letters that I received from constituents during this session. I was attempting to table them throughout some of the debates and conversations, but there were so many that I was not able to, but I would like to make sure they are tabled before the end of this session. And they are, I will add, letters regarding cuts to museums, arts and culture, the Visitor Information Centre, as well as other people that have been negatively influenced by the decisions of this government.
The papers are tabled. I recognize the honourable member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to table a document related to a member statement.
The papers are tabled. I recognize the honourable Minister of Housing.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to table a document. Last night during the third reading of Bill 212, I read a quote from MP Elaine Hurdle. I'd like to table that today.
The papers are tabled. Statements by ministers. Government notice of motions. I recognize the Honourable Attorney General and Minister of Justice.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas correctional officers across Nova Scotia play a vital role in maintaining public safety and ensuring the safe, secure, and effective operation of correctional facilities, and whereas these professionals work in demanding and often high-risk environments that require dedication, resilience, and professionalism, and whereas the province of Nova Scotia, through a collaboration with the Nova Scotia government and the General Employees Union, has approved and modernized a pay plan for these professionals that enhances compensation, supports recruitment and retention, and provides clear career progression. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of this House recognize and commend correctional officers for their continued service, professionalism, and commitment to public safety, and acknowledge the importance of ongoing support and investment to ensure a strong and effective correctional system for all Nova Scotians. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. It is agreed. Would all those in favour of the motion please say aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay? The motion is carried. Government, I recognize the Honourable Minister of All New Affairs.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Tuesday, April 7th was Sexual Assault Awareness Day of Action, a time to raise awareness about sexual violence and sexual assault, support survivors, promote prevention, and whereas sexual violence, like other forms of gender-based violence, stems from gender inequality, power imbalances, and harmful social norms. making the work of the Status of Women Office and its partners across government to advance gender equality, support gender-based violence initiatives, and strengthen education, awareness, and supports for survivors that are much more important. Whereas ending gender-based violence, including sexual violence, requires continued leadership and collaboration across government and with our community partners, like the Avalon Sexual Assault Centre and the Legal Information Society of Nova Scotia, whose work is essential in supporting survivors and driving prevention efforts. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of this House of Assembly join me in reaffirming our shared commitment to ending gender-based violence in this province and to fostering safe, inclusive communities where everyone, no matter of age, gender, or background, are free from the threat of violence. Madam Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for a waiver. Is it agreed? It is agreed. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye? Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried. Government notice of motions. Introduction of bills. Notices of motions. Statements by members. I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Atlantic.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, one of the things that makes our province so great is the value we place on community and especially on our family. That love carries over into this chamber and is one of the reasons we have passionate debates and disagreements. But while in this chamber, we should recognize the privilege, these roles, and the dignity that comes along with them. That means having our disagreements, having our back and forth between each other, but we should not go as far as to drag family or staff into drive-by smears. The family members of everybody here have sacrificed a lot to support our careers. That should not be made fodder for cheap social media hits or attempts to garner media. We're all only here for a limited time. The beauty of our system is when we're gone, we're gone. But this all falls away. But Hansard remains a record of this place. There's an unwritten rule around families that generation and after generations of elected politicians have followed. They are not politicians. They are not here to defend themselves, and any attacks on them is cheap and below the position we have the privilege to hold as the people's representatives. So I ask all members of this House, let's not drag family members and staff into this place for a purpose of political points. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Fairview Clayton Park.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise today to recognize the inspiring work of the Rainbow Refugee Association of Nova Scotia, or RANS, who are the only organization in Atlantic Canada dedicated specifically to supporting refugees in the LGBTQIA+ community. Founded in 2011, this grassroots organization has successfully settled, and this might be an older number, but 42 LGBTQIA+ individuals, couples, and families since their inception. Beyond refugee sponsorship and resettlement, RANS assists newcomers with navigating complex social support systems, creates meaningful community connections, and engages in advocacy and education to foster stronger and more inclusive communities. RANS provides vital assistance for persons who have faced unimaginable hardships simply because of who they are. They build strong, connected, loving communities where everyone can thrive with dignity. Please join me in recognizing the resilience of the LGBTQIA+ refugees fighting for their right to live safely and authentically, and this organization's dedication to supporting their journeys. Thank you, Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Sydney, member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's always great when you can give your buddy the gears when he's not here, but I look across every day and I see the hair getting grayer. It's the member from Timberley Prospect's birthday today, and he's not here. But you know what? I'm sure that he's probably home watching, or wherever he is watching Ledge TV, because that's what he does. But I rise to my place to wish my friend a very happy birthday. He's with his family today. Proud to serve with him. Proud to serve with him really throughout most of my political career. So he has served the people of Timberley Prospect proudly since 2013. He's served in various cabinet positions, and of course he has had the privilege of serving as Premier of this province, and I was honored to serve underneath him. So I rise to my place to recognize my friend who's a little older and a little grayer, but he's a really good guy. So happy birthday to the member from Timberley Prospect.
I recognize the honourable member for Kings West.
Madam Speaker, I rise today in recognition of Vimy Ridge Day, a day of remembrance for those brave Canadians who fought in the Battle of Vimy Ridge, which was a pivotal fight and a turning point in World War I. 109 years ago today, the Battle of Vimy Ridge began and raged for 4 days, resulting in more than 10,000 Canadians dead or wounded, with more than 2,000 on April 9th alone. Even in the face of these massive losses, the Canadians would carry the day at Vimy Ridge. Among those brave Canadians men were the Nova Scotia Highlanders, a unit made up entirely of Maritimers. On the battle's final day, they were the final reserves of their battalion, tasked with capturing the final German position on the ridge, a hill which threatened the whole of the Canadian force. Without artillery support, they surged forward and in 10 minutes took the hill with a heroic bayonet charge, costing them more than 350 dead or wounded. It is on that hill, taken by those Nova Scotians, Prince Edward Islanders, and New Brunswickers, the modern Canadian National Vimy Memorial stands upon today. Because of their sacrifice, the battle was won without any more loss of life. On this day, I encourage Nova Scotians to consider our place in history and to remember those brave men and women who have fought for the freedom and prosperity that we all enjoy today. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Lunenburg West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today I rise with gratitude to honour my foundation. Bill and Gail Boyle, my parents, not flesh of my flesh nor bone of my bone, but still miraculously my very own. This week marks 19 years since we lost my dad, Bill. He was a man small in stature, but large in presence, and his kindness, wisdom, and humour still guide me every single day. My mom, Gail, shows her love through service. She's been my steadfast chauffeur and champion, offering sandwiches and encouragement when I was a brownie, selling Girl Guide cookies door to door, then delivering flyers, and still steady by my side through 2 election campaigns with those same sandwiches and support. But my story doesn't end there. Sharon and Ron Sweeney welcomed me home to their family nearly 30 years ago with open arms and hearts. They gave me a deeper understanding of where I come from, and they gave me another place to belong. And Greer and Madonna Hunt, who came into my life later when time was more limited, but who met me then and support me still with grace, acceptance, and love. Madam Speaker, I stand here because of all of them. I am deeply blessed, and I'm deeply grateful. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Transgender and gender diverse people in Canada are disproportionately affected by violence, with 59% reporting experiences of violent victimization compared to 37% of cisgender folks. This includes higher rates of sexual and physical assault, unwanted sexual behaviors in public and at work, and online or street harassment. 67% of LGBT plus women report experiencing interpartner violence compared to 44% of all women. Gender-based violence against queer and trans folks manifests itself everywhere, including all public spaces, cafes, stores, walking down the streets, workplaces, etc. And transgender and gender diverse Canadians are more than twice as likely as cisgender Canadians to have experienced unwanted sexual behaviors in public places. Addressing the gender-based violence faced by the 2S LGBTQI+ community should have been part of the 2S LGBTQI+ action plan, but it is silent on this issue. Nova Scotian organizations want to increase their capacity to respond to this issue. We cannot end the interpersonal violence epidemic in Nova Scotia without supporting all Nova Scotians. I ask all members to listen and support community organizations doing this work so that the response to queer and trans Nova Scotians experiencing violence can be improved.
I recognize the honourable member for Yarmouth.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to share the excitement surrounding one of Yarmouth's most cherished traditions, Seafest. Since 1979, the unique Maritime Festival has brought together residents and visitors each July to celebrate the very best of our coastal community, our food, our culture, and our way of life. This year, Seafest will take place from July 9th to the 18th under the inspiring theme, Tides and Fun Tides of Fun and Wonder. It promises to be another incredible celebration throughout Yarmouth County. I am especially encouraged by the Seafest Committee's vision as they explore new directions to build on the festival's strong foundation and ensure its continued success. With 2028 marking its 50th anniversary, there is a growing sense of excitement as the team works towards this significant milestone. I'd like to extend my sincere thanks to the many dedicated volunteers who make Seafest possible, and I warmly invite all Nova Scotians to visit Yarmouth this July and join in the celebration. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Peer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. During a recent Rotary meeting in New Waterford, Angela McKinn was presented with the Duncan Roach Unsung Hero Award, a truly deserving recipient. Angela has given countless hours over the last 39 years of service, not for recognition, but simply out of love for her church community and the people within it. If you've ever walked through the doors of St. Leonard's, chances are Angela was one of the very first faces to welcome you. Her presence brings warmth, comfort, and a sense of belonging to everyone she meets. She plays an instrumental role in decorating the church for all the religious celebrations and helping to create a space that reflects beauty and meaning of each season. Madam Speaker, the Unsung Hero Award is named after one of our great community people, the late Reverend Duncan Roach, and to be given this award in honor of his name is really, truly something that you'll never forget for the rest of your life, and it really, truly brings a lot of meaning to our community. So thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Atlantic.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to make an introduction before I begin my statement.
Please do.
Joining us in the gallery today are members of the Maritime Tamil Welfare Association. Madam Speaker, please forgive me. If I do a disservice to the names, I apologize. I can barely pronounce my name, so we'll go with that. President Aman, you stand as the larger-than-life Valar. Vishnu Ryan. Vishnu? No, not here. Delphin, there we go. Ashcott, there we go. Mad Humati, there we go. Darian, there we go. And Vignesh. Did I miss anyone? Everybody stand up, please.
It's all right. Well, welcome. We are so happy you're here with us today. We hope you enjoy your time. I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Atlantic.
Just before I get into my statement, I will also recognize that Valar is my boss. So, Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize TNVM, a registered nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting Tamil families across Nova Scotia and Maritime provinces. TNVM plays a vital role in strengthening our communities through its commitment to cultural programming, youth engagement, newcomer support, and community services. By creating welcoming spaces where culture, language, and identity are celebrated, TNVM helps families feel connected while fostering a strong sense of belonging. Their youth initiatives empower young people to lead, volunteer, and engage confidently in their communities, while their newcomer supports help families navigate settlement and build new lives with dignity and confidence. Importantly, TNVM also encourages civic awareness and meaningful participation in Canadian democratic life, helping community members understand their rights, responsibilities, and opportunities to contribute. I stand today to sincerely thank TNVM for their tireless work, dedication, and leadership. Their efforts enrich our province, strengthen social bonds, and make our communities more inclusive and vibrant for everyone. Madam Speaker, I ask for another round of applause for TNVM. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
recognize the honourable member for Halifax Needham.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize National Unicorn Day. National Unicorn Day celebrates the mythical horse-like creature with a single pointed horn growing from the center of its forehead. We all know about this because if we have children, if we've watched videos or cartoons, we know about unicorns. But did you know that unicorns are symbols of love, purity, enchantment, and magic? How do we observe National Unicorn Day, you wonder? Well, we can make brightly colored pancakes. We can have unicorn-shaped cookies, draw pictures of unicorns, whatever way you like. And you could actually cuddle a unicorn or have your children do that. Madam Speaker, I would like all members to join me in celebrating National Unicorn Day so that we can make it magical.
I recognize the honourable member for King South.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, it is a true honor to rise today and recognize an extraordinary milestone. My in-laws are celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary. A remarkable achievement that speaks not only to time, but to enduring love, commitment, and partnership. For 6 decades, they have built a life together grounded in respect, resilience, and deep care for one another. Through all of life's seasons, they have stood side by side, creating a family rooted in strong values and unwavering support. Their example is one that continues to guide and experience and inspire all of us who are fortunate enough to be part of their lives. I am deeply grateful to them, not only for the family they have built, but for the warmth, wisdom, and kindness they share so generously. And on a deeply personal note, it is because of them that I am married to the love of my life. For that, I will always be especially grateful. Their legacy is reflected in their children, grandchildren, and in the many lives they've touched over the years. It is a legacy of love, strength, and quiet leadership. On behalf of our entire family, I offer my heartfelt congratulations and deepest admiration. 60 years is an incredible journey, and it is one worth celebrating with great pride. Thank you, Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Sackville-Cobequid.
April 15th marks the first ever election through a for us, by us vote of members who self-identify as African Nova Scotian or Indigenous to elect one African Nova Scotian representative and one Indigenous representative to the Nova Scotia Teachers Union Provincial Executive. The Provincial Executive is the highest decision-making body of the NSTU, responsible for the direction and operation of the union between annual meetings. The successful candidates will instantly become table officers, senior members of the executive working hand in glove with the president, first vice president, secretary, treasurer, centering Black and Indigenous perspectives in every decision and process the executive undertakes. I want to express my admiration and thanks to candidates for the African Nova Scotian executive role, Malik Adams from Halifax City and Ainsley Bravo Calderon from the Yarmouth local, and the candidates for the Indigenous executive role, Francine Fleming from Halifax City and Tanya Gould from the Inverness local, for putting their names forward in this groundbreaking election. And to all NSTU members voting in this inaugural election, thank you for your partnership and leadership in building a more just union that better reflects the incredible diversity of our profession. Congratulations to all involved on a step towards justice.
I recognize the honourable member for Clayton Park West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to celebrate 2 significant individuals in my life. There's a quote that says that the quality of your life is directly proportionate to the quality of the people that surround you. My wife, Fola, will be celebrating her birthday on April the 11th. And tomorrow, the April the 10th, my constituency coordinator, Karen Smith, will be celebrating a milestone birthday. I'm so fortunate to have these 2 special people in my life. Fola is the jewel of inestimable value in my life. I call her the wind underneath my wings. She's the one I call the babe of life. She's the steady heart of our home. She's a woman of strength, grace, and deep love. Our children and I are blessed every day because of who she is. Karen plays a key role in the constituency office. She makes people feel welcome, heard, and cared for, and always kind to share a word. She serves our constituency with grace, warmth, and peace. Karen also serves everyone who comes to the office with a cup of coffee, tea, or cold water, whatever you like. Madam Speaker, I ask all members of this House to join me in wishing these 2 incredible women a beautiful, happy birthday. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Fairview Clayton Park.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I rise today to thank the Citizenship 9 class in Fairview Junior High for inviting me to speak with them recently about the work of the legislature and how they can get involved with the issues that shape their community. This visit was made possible by the impressive initiative of 5 students, William Creelman, Dan Denkin, Jamie Briscombe, Connor Kennedy, and Riley Buckle-Pino. As part of their service learning curriculum, these students reached out directly to their local representative to help bridge the gap between the classroom and the broader community. Speaker, I was deeply moved by the caliber of questions that they asked. These students did not shy away from difficult topics. They asked thoughtful and challenging questions about how we as provincial leaders are addressing critical issues like fighting poverty and dismantling systemic racism. Classes are studying and paying attention to our current provincial budget and are demonstrating a level of civic maturity and responsibility that is truly commendable. Programs like Citizenship 9 are vital because they empower our youth to see themselves as active participants in our democracy and not just observers. So please join me in recognizing the amazing staff and students at Fairview Junior High, and specifically these 5 young leaders for their hospitality, their attention, and their dedication to building a more equitable Nova Scotia. Thank you, Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Inverness.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je me lève aujourd'hui pour rendre hommage à Charlie Dan Roach de Chédécamp, qui nous a quittés plus tôt cette année. Charlie Dan, qui a été enseignant pendant plus de 30 ans, a une influence profonde sur les jeunes de Chédécamp. Les guidant vers l'avenir, à sa retraite, Charlie Dan a consacré son énergie à l'histoire de sa communauté et en particulier à la généalogie. Il a été bénévole au Centre de généalogie Père Charles Aucoin pendant plus de 40 ans, faisant la promotion du patrimoine acadien avec diligence et persévérance. Charlie Dan a également partagé ses connaissances en publiant Nos Aucoins de Chédécamp en 2004, et sans qu'un livre soulignant le 100e anniversaire de l'église Saint-Pierre, mettant en lumière de son histoire. La passion de Charlie Dan est bien au-delà de la généalogie. Il a été directeur de la chorale à la paroisse Saint-Pierre et a animé des émissions et des événements spéciaux à la radio CKGM. En reconnaissance de son engagement envers le passé, le présent et l'avenir de Chédécamp, Charlie Dan a reçu la médaille de couronnement du roi Charles III à l'an dernier. Madame la Présidente, le dévouement de Charlie Dan envers sa communauté manquera énormément aux gens de Chédécamp. Nous offrons nos plus sincères condoléances à sa famille et ses nombreux amis. Il nous manquera beaucoup. Madam Speaker, I rise today to pay tribute to Charlie Dan Roach of Chédécamp, who passed away earlier this year. Charlie Dan, who was a teacher for more than 30 years, had a profound influence on young people of Chédécamp, guiding them into the future. When he retired, Charlie Dan devoted his energy to the history of his community, and in particular, genealogy. He served as a volunteer at the Père Charles Aucoin Genealogy Center for more than 4 decades, diligently and thoughtfully promoting Acadian heritage. Charlie Dan also shared his knowledge by authoring Nos Aucoins de Chédécamp in 2004, as well as a booklet on the 100th anniversary of the St. Pierre Church that highlighted its history. Charlie Dan's passions went beyond genealogy, serving as the choir director at Paroisse St. Pierre and hosting programs and special events on CKJM radio. In recognition of his commitment to the past, present, and future of Chédécamp, Charlie Dan was presented with the King Charles III Coronation Medal last year. Madam Speaker, Charlie Dan's devotion to his community will be greatly missed by the residents of Chédécamp. We send our condolences to his family and many friends. He will be greatly missed. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's time to dream of warm days, green fields, leaves on trees, and Pride season. How lucky are we in Nova Scotia to have celebrations about inclusion, diversity, and equity across the province for months? Pride is so important now. It offers an important way for all people and communities to connect. Prides are growing and proliferating in Nova Scotia, largely supported by amazing volunteers. I can't wait to get to as many prides as I can, and neither should you. I spoke to leaders of rural prides at a provincial gathering in February, and they all wanted to know how better to engage their MLAs. Make it easier for them. Invite them to meet with you in the coming weeks to understand the challenges and opportunities for the coming year. Buy ads, buy tickets, show up. I will see folks across the province in coming months. Happy Pride.
I recognize the honourable member for Sydney, member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise in my place to recognize a friend of mine, Lucy Duggan from Vaughan, who stood next to me with her sign when I addressed the crowd. She's a student in Windsor. Lucy developed a rare kidney disease when she was 4, and her parents decided when she was 6 to move to Vaughan, to be closer to nature and less stress on her body. She's now in complete remission since the move, and her friends at Windsor Forks District School all love to swim, ice fish, and visit the Millipbrook Falls, where they've been known to spot turtles and other wildlife. The people in this community feel vulnerable, and Lucy's fighting too since the ban on uranium was lifted after being in place for the safety and scientific reasons. Lucy is fighting with her friends and family for the ban to be put back in place so they can grow up healthy and enjoying their beautiful environment. And Madam Speaker, I want to rise in my place because Lucy is a new friend. I'm really proud of her. She came to the legislature with her mother and her friends in her community to stand up for what she believes in, and we need more of that in our democracy. And I'm honored to rise in my place on the floor of the legislature and recognize Lucy Duggan. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Bedford Basin.
Good morning, Speaker. Speaker, I've been a dad for a long time now, which means I'm an expert on bad dad jokes and also an expert at embarrassing my daughters, and that's what I plan to do today. Liz Outhet is 28. She's graduating from Dow Med School on May the 29th. She's being married on June the 6th on the Sunshine Coast in BC at the community next to where the Beachcombers were filmed. She starts in July as a surgical resident in the Obs-Gyne program at UBC, one of 10 selected from across the country, and I believe the first from Dalhousie. My other daughter, Emily, is 26. She's a human and environmentalist researcher at the North Slave Lake Métis Association in Yellowknife. She was able to tie together her love and her education in environment and in Indigenous studies. The main thing I want to announce is that Sandra and I are so proud that in June, Emily will be 5 years in remission from the blood cancer known as Hodgkin's lymphoma. And after 5 years, you're allowed to use the term cured. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Madam Speaker, CUPE Nova Scotia's long-term care workers are a vital part of our healthcare system, providing necessary care for our aging population. They are overworked, underpaid, and are pushed beyond their limits. It's time that the government provides some care to those who care for others, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on Monday, the long-term care workers are set to strike. Tomorrow, they'll be holding rallies across the province. And I know we will be standing here in the Nova Scotia NDP in solidarity with those long-term care workers. I can only hope the rest of the House will do the same. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Cole Harbour, Dartmouth.
Madam Speaker, in anticipation that this may be the last day we sit in this chamber until the fall, I rise to say a few special thank yous. I would like to start with the staff here at the legislature. It takes a great, yes. It takes a great team to keep everything running smoothly, and you work so diligently through sometimes difficult circumstances. Thank you to the Sergeant of Arms, the commissionaires, the clerks, our amazing pages, and the staff at Ledge TV. I also want to thank the folks behind the scenes who you rarely see, the staff at our caucus office. They write our speeches, sometimes at the last minute, and make sure we are armed and ready with our member statements. They are a sounding board for advice and support, and sometimes when we just need a chat. They also bring us lots of snacks. That's popular. I also want to thank the staff who work outside the caucus office. You know who you are and the important work you do. You are invaluable to us. Finally, I would like to thank our constituency coordinators who work hard to keep our offices running smoothly while we are in this chamber. Madam Speaker, we, the MLAs, are the face of government, but it takes a big team for this legislature to function well. And I ask each of you to join me as we thank the members of our legislative team for all their assistance during this session. I hope you all have a wonderful summer, and we will see you again in the fall. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Needham.
Madam Speaker, the sky is falling on April 9th because it's National Chicken Little Day. Chicken Little Awareness Day. This quirky day celebrates the world's most famous alarmist, a folktale character who constantly thinks the world is coming to an end. Whether you're a glass half empty kind of person or you just enjoy a good overreaction, today is your day to embrace the panic and hopefully laugh it off. While the original Chicken Little who founded this day has kept their identity under wraps, their intentional message is clear, Madam Speaker. Don't let the acorns get the best of you. This is a take a deep breath day to fact-check the fear and celebrate the fact that the sky is still exactly where it is. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Wise person once told me the sky is never falling. I recognize the honourable member for Hammonds Plains, Lucasville.
Speaker, I beg leave to make an introduction.
Please do.
Speaker, I'd like to draw your attention to your gallery, where we're joined today by Bolo Ani. Hey, Bolo.
Oh, okay. LTV figured you were done, that part. We welcome you and indeed all visitors to the host, to the gallery. We hope you enjoy your time here. I recognize the honourable member for Hammonds Plains, Lucasville.
Thank you, Speaker. Bolo is a bright young mind from West Bedford School and is currently serving as a co-op in my constituency office. It's been a pleasure to have Bolo's energy and perspective in our office as he learns about the work we do for the people of Nova Scotia. Bolo's been diving straight into the deep end with legislative work, even helping write today's member statement that I have. I ask you to thank Bolo and Rise, and thank you for his attendance today.
Oh, your mic was still on. It's all right, but I can only recognize you twice. You know that. Now, I recognize the honourable member for Hammonds Plains, Lucasville.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise today to celebrate a wonderful new addition to Hammonds Plains, 740 Restaurant. Founded by the Dane family, who are originally from Latvia, this business reflects the story of hard work, perseverance, and the pursuit of a better life, something many Nova Scotian families can relate to. Bringing together culinary traditions from across Central and Eastern Europe, 740 Restaurant offers authentic dishes like schnitzels and spetzels, each one rooted in generations of family passion and pride. Located in Voyager Lakes Plaza, the restaurant is quickly becoming a welcoming spot in our community. And today on Vimy Ridge Day, I'd also like to recognize that their generosity in offering complimentary meals to veterans every third Thursday of the month. Speaker, I ask all members to join me in congratulating the Dane family on their success and thanking them for their culture, warmth, and community spirit in Hammonds Plains. Thank you, Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Speaker. This is a dual member statement, unscripted. First, I want to wish my dad, Bill Wozni, a wonderful return home. He is facing months of stay in hospital, and today is being discharged from the Nova Scotia Rehab Center to return to his home. I want to wish him the very best in his transition as he figures out a new normal with my mom and the care of supports that are now in place for him. And I also want to stand and say thank you to my constituency team, Alex Robin and Lisa Farmer, who may be watching live on the big TV in the office. If you are, thank you so much for holding down the fort, and look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you so much for holding up the office while I've been here in the legislature. Looking forward to celebrating with you next week and get out to have some lunch. So I know so many are thankful for the constituency coordinators, but wanted to rise in my place and acknowledge my team. Thank you, Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Victoria the Lakes.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize the Bullendree Island Connected Society, also known as BICS, an organization making a meaningful difference in the community since founded in 2019. Serving the beautiful Bullendree Island, BICS was created to help rural seniors stay connected, active, and engaged. What began as a simple idea has grown into a vibrant community initiative. Through popular cooking classes led by the resident culinary chef, Lars, and well-attended lunch and learn sessions held at the Big Bador Community Hall, BICS has created a welcoming opportunity for learning, social connection, and community building. Powered entirely by a dedicated volunteer board and supported through successful grant funding, the organization continues to grow and adapt to meet the needs of the multi-generational rural population. I would like to recognize the founding board members, Lars Willems, Susan Martin, Denise Oak, Fraser, and the late Valerie Patterson, a much-loved volunteer who passed away recently. Valerie has been instrumental in starting this organization and was a wonderful volunteer. The board is also made up of two newer members, Nancy Cronin and Kathy Squires, who are very active volunteers. Madam Speaker, I ask all members of the House to join me in thanking BICS for their commitment to their strengthening community connections on Bullendree Island. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Colchester North.
Madam Speaker, I rise today with a heavy heart to honour a prominent man in Great Village, Percy Graham. With his wonderful personality, Percy was a friend of all he met. Percy worked with his father and then eventually took over and ran the Riverside Service Station for many years. After selling the business, he went to work at Copycat Pass. In his retirement, Percy tended to his garden and read and cheered for the Toronto Blue Jays. Percy had a true interest in people and was always there to serve the public. He was quick to lend a hand, never asking for anything in return. Percy lived his life the way he wished most people wished to live theirs. Madam Speaker, Percy had a wonderful life, highlighted by his wife and partner of 54 years, Joy, and their sons, Adam and Kent. And Madam Speaker, Percy had a presence that was larger than life and will be missed by everyone who had the pleasure of knowing him. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Queens.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to recognize the distinguished service of Christopher Clark, Chair of the Board for Queens Home for Special Care, affectionately known as the Manor. Christopher recently announced that he will step down from his position in May. Christopher leaves a remarkable legacy, most notably achieving his primary goal, securing a new $108 million long-term care facility. The neighborhoods of Dogwood Lane is set for completion by year-end. His foresight also led to the establishment of a foundation to ensure residents enjoy the extras that make a house a home. Christopher's commitment is deeply personal. He has seen the Manor's excellence both as a chair and as the husband of former resident and his late wife, Peggy. He leaves the board with immense pride in the staff and leadership. Please join me in thanking Christopher for his tireless advocacy and profound impact on the constituents of Queens County. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Hants West.
I beg
I beg leave to make an introduction.
Please do.
In your gallery, Speaker, I draw your attention to Braydon Kelly, who has been a co-op student. He's a grade 12 co-op student from Avonview High School, where the member from Waverly Fall River was the principal at one point. I brought him in just before we went into the house, thinking I'd have all the time in the world to spend with him, and I haven't really, but he's bright, he's brilliant, he's got a future in politics, I believe, or radio broadcasting. He's off to take political science when he's finished, and I ask that he raise and accept the warm welcome of the House.
Welcome, welcome to the House, and we hope you enjoy your time here. I recognize the honourable member for Truro, Bible Hill, Millbrook, Salmon River.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to recognize an important milestone within the Truro Fire Service. Chief Blois Curry and the entire department are proud to congratulate two outstanding members on their recent promotions. Michael Mabey has been appointed as career captain with the A Platoon, and Tom Malone will assume his role as career captain with B Platoon beginning May 3rd. These appointments reflect not only their dedication and professionalism, but also their commitment to keeping our communities safe. Firefighters play a critical role in protecting residents, often putting themselves in harm's way to serve others, and strong leadership within the ranks is essential to that mission. Captain Mabey and Captain Malone have each demonstrated the skill, integrity, and leadership required for these important positions. Their colleagues and residents of Truro are fortunate to have them serving in these new roles. I ask all members of this House to join me in congratulating Captain Michael Mabey and Captain Tom Malone, and in wishing them continued success in their service to our community. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Madam Speaker, thank you on this, hopefully, last day of this spring session. I just wanted to say that it feels like a million years ago since we began the session, and even though we're feeling maybe a little relieved to be rising today, I just want to extend solidarity and a reminder of the people who have been deeply affected by the budget that we've passed in this session. Arts and culture workers, people who are working in not-for-profits, food programs, and different programs that work with vulnerable people. The people that are now, as we rise and go on to our constituency work, these folks are dealing with looking for new jobs. They are dealing with trying to figure out how their budgets are going to be balanced with these cuts. And it's going to be a hard job. And I want them to know that we're not going to forget about them, and we'll continue to work and advocate to get that funding reversed, or that funding reinstated. Thank you very much.
I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Madam Speaker, as we end this legislative session, I want to speak up of the importance of women in this chamber. This building is filled with the images and legacy of those who have shaped public life before us, and so often that legacy is overwhelmingly male. And that is why the presence, the leadership, and the voices of women in this legislature matter so much. Because even now, too often, women who speak with conviction are dismissed. Too often, concerns raised by women are minimized, and too often, issues that deeply affect women, like the ongoing call for women's healthcare strategies, treated as though it can wait. Women's voices are not an interruption. They are not theater. And it is not, women's leadership is not something to be just tolerated. It is something to be respected. What we say and what we do in this chamber sends a message to the next generation of women. And let it be a message to young women that they should be strong and fearless and unwavering in standing up for what is right and standing up for truth and justice. Madam Speaker, they should never have to put up with dismissive attitudes. They should learn that they can lead with principle and never be told that they don't matter. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Cole Harbour Dartmouth.
Madam Speaker, I just rise for a quick second to wish my incredible mother a happy birthday. She's the most extraordinary person I've ever known. Tomorrow is Cecilia McDonald's 80th birthday, and Ma, it looks like I'm going to see you. So I'll see you tomorrow. All right.
I recognize the honourable member for Glace Bay Dominion.
Madam Speaker, I rise to recognize a significant milestone in Nova Scotia's labour history. 120 years of service by Local 1588 Carpenters Union in Cape Breton. Founded on September 14, 1905, for more than a century, the Carpenters Union has stood shoulder to shoulder with working people, helping to build our homes, schools, hospitals, and infrastructure, the very fabric of our communities. For 120 years, the union has remained committed to improving the lives of those who earn a living in the carpentry trade, advocating for fair wages, safe working conditions, skilled training, and a dignity for all on the job. Today, with the dedicated staff of 7 professionals serving more than 1,100 members, the legacy continues. Madam Speaker, the Carpenters Union remains strong, relevant, and resilient. It is my honor to congratulate the Carpenters Union, Local 1588, on 120 years of service to Cape Breton and to the province of Nova Scotia. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Clare.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize Crystal Flynn and Mandy Muse, proud owners of SOS Refillery in Clare. Through their leadership, SOS Refillery is helping our community embrace more sustainable living by encouraging refillable options for everyday products, reducing single-use plastics, and cutting down on unnecessary packaging. They are making it easier for people to make environmentally responsible choices. Every refill represents a step toward a cleaner environment, less plastic pollution, and a more mindful way of living. Their work is a powerful reminder that protecting our planet starts with everyday actions. SOS Refillery also recently became the recipient of the 2026 Vince Stewart Prize in Sustainable Innovation through the Conseil de Développement Économique de la Nouvelle-Écosse. Madam Speaker, their message is simple yet impactful. Refill, reuse, reduce, repeat. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today in the House, we heard one of the cabinet ministers for Status of Women express support for ending sexual violence. And let me be clear, that is something every one of us should stand behind here in the House. But words in the chamber should be matched by actions. Because while this government speaks about ending sexual violence, it continues to allow, and in some cases use themselves, non-disclosure agreements that silence victims. We have seen cases kept hidden. We have seen investigations shielded. We have seen silence enforced. Madam Speaker, that is not justice, and that is not leadership. If we are truly committed to ending sexual violence, then we must also end the systems that protect it, the secrecy, the intimidation, and the silencing of survivors. Because survivors do not need statements. They need accountability, they need protection, and they need to be heard. Until this government is willing to lead with action, not just words, those statements ring hollow. Let's lead with real positive change, the kind that leads to positive results and outcomes, and truth and justice for all. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Shelburne.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize our amazing volunteer fire departments. At the drop of a hat, members will leave what they're doing and come to our rescue wherever and whenever as needed. The fire departments also stay very busy beyond emergencies to respond to. For example, on May 3rd, the Barrington and Port Latour Fire Department Ladies Auxiliary will host their annual Spring Fling, filled with lots of fun activities for the whole family. And on Sunday, May 10th, the Ingomar Roseway Department will host a Mother Day seafood and fish chowder. Every Monday night, in the Middle and Upper Ohio Department hosts a crib night with great prizes, a bar, and canteen. Madam Speaker, our fire departments spend a great deal of their time fundraising throughout the year, so I encourage all members and the community to follow our departments and support these amazing volunteers who support us. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Hants West.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize the Hants Learning Network Association for its outstanding contribution to our community. For 30 years, the Hants Learning Network has been a welcoming place of encouragement, opportunity, and support for learners of all ages. By offering free adult and family learning programs, they have helped countless individuals strengthen their skills, build confidence, and open new doors for themselves and their families. The Hants Learning Network understands that learning is not the same for everyone. Through literacy classes, one-on-one tutoring, and practical skill-based workshops, they meet people where they are and help them move forward with dignity and hope. Their family programs also create meaningful opportunities for parents and children to learn to grow together. Madam Speaker, I ask all members join me in recognizing Hants Learning Network Association for its long-standing commitment to literacy, lifelong learning, and the well-being of our community. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Preston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, today I rise to acknowledge Amber Brown, Kareem O'Keefe, Peter Oedijo, Gary Russell, and Marcus Wilmot. Special advisors to ministers who are African Nova Scotians and people of African descent, contributing their insight, skill, and dedication across multiple ministries. Their presence and leadership strengthens our province and help ensure that diverse voices are reflected in the work we do. I also want to recognize the staff at ANZA and the Public Service Commission for their ongoing commitment and support. Their excellence is felt every day. Please join me in acknowledging their important work. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
We have 30 seconds. I recognize the honourable member for Kings North.
Madam Speaker, I rise to honour the life of Kentville resident Dr. Ian Theodore Vernon Stewart, who passed away on March 28th. By the time of his retirement, Ian was one of the longest-serving family physicians in the Nova Scotia Western Zone, having worked as a doctor for nearly 50 years. Ian served for many years as a doctor for the Kentville Volunteer Fire Department and also served as a ringside physician for local amateur boxing matches, among many other things. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Order. Thank you. The time for statements by members has expired. We will move to orders of the day. Oral questions put by members to ministers, and it is 12 o'clock. We will end at 12:50. I recognize the honourable leader for the official opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this budget sitting was a wasted opportunity to actually help Nova Scotians with the soaring expenses that they're facing. People assumed that this government would take the issue seriously and would come into this House with solutions, but they have not. Meanwhile, power bills are going up again later this month, and by January, people will be paying $600 a year more than when this government was elected. We have seen no action to address this. Why won't this government help people afford to keep the heat and lights on?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Finance and Treasury Board.
Madam Speaker, this budget has been very focused on meeting the needs of Nova Scotians. We've heard numerous questions from the opposition on health care. We're hearing questions on affordability. We're investing in health care. We're investing in affordability for Nova Scotians through tax breaks that will save the average Nova Scotian family $1,400 a year, Madam Speaker. That is real money on their income tax return. That is real money on a 1% reduction in HST. These are real numbers. This is real. Makes a real impact into the lives of Nova Scotians. And further to that, we're continuing to invest in things like the school food lunch program. And I'm disappointed that the opposition again did not support our school food lunch program, Madam Speaker. We're investing in things like the indexing of...
Order. I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, the initiatives that the minister just rattled off benefit the people who need it the most far less than many other Nova Scotians. And in fact, Madam Speaker, only 15% of Nova Scotians think that this government is doing a good job managing cost of living pressures. And it's not hard to see why. Natasha McMullen works full-time as a tire technician. And even so, she has been homeless since October of 2024. And she says that she can't see a time when she'll be able to afford a home. Madam Speaker, people are leaving the province not because they want to, but because they can't afford to build their lives here. When will this government...
Order. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Finance and Treasury Board.
Madam Speaker, we recognize the stresses on ordinary Nova Scotians. That's why we're continuing to invest in housing. We have a housing program with the Minister of Housing could elaborate on, I'm sure, that for new home buyers, allowing a lower down payment. But further than that, we recognize the issues of homelessness. That's why we've had a 1,300% increase since we've been in government addressing homelessness. We know there's more to do. We've done it through tiny homes. We've done it through many different ways. Madam Speaker, we're concerned about to provide housing for every Nova Scotian. We're working hard on that. We're indexing the income assistance program, thanks to the now Minister of Education, and who saw a need to do that, having been in that program.
Order. I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Madam Speaker, rent is up almost $6,000 a year since this government was elected, so housing isn't the best proof point. One of the biggest expenses for families in our province is the cost of childcare. Provinces like Manitoba have used their budget to make childcare free for low-income families, but parents in this province continue to pay thousands more than families in St. John's or Charlottetown or Winnipeg. No matter what the talking points are, the government missed the deadline to provide $10 a day childcare to Nova Scotians. Why is this government okay with a budget that does so little to help Nova Scotian families with their costs?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The only talking points is coming from the official opposition, Madam Speaker. The facts are that we have met our spaces, Madam Speaker. We're at an average of $12 a day, Madam Speaker. Daycare, Madam Speaker, over 4,000 families in Nova Scotia now pay $0. The cost of childcare is reduced by 50% since we started this, Madam Speaker. And the truth is that we are recognized across Canada by every single province and territory for the work we've done. We've been recognized by the federal government for the work we've done here. We'll continue to work with families across Nova Scotia, and we'll continue to work with our federal partners to achieve the goals they set out.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Sydney, Member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this past February, the Northern Cape Breton Emergency Response Task Force wrote to the Minister sounding the alarm about ambulance response times in northern Inverness County. They report that response times exceeding 35 minutes have become commonplace, with some calls taking over an hour. In some cases, an ambulance doesn't respond within 2 hours, and I'll table that. For families facing a medical emergency, those delays can mean the difference between life and death. Does the minister accept that these response times far fall below an acceptable standard of care, and what concrete steps is she taking to help address this?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Speaker. I thank the member for the question. So certainly we are aware of the correspondence. Certainly someone from the Division of EHS has looked into the concerns of the individuals. Actually, the day, I think I was there maybe 18 months ago to talk about folks on the north side of the mountain there. It was the day of the big storm. We were almost storm stained. So we appreciate that. We've looked into some of the data. We'll be reaching out to community to understand, but it is important that people understand that there is an integrated EHS system and that there are a variety of different supports, including MFRs and community, and folks there can expect that they'll hear from us soon.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Sydney, Member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And the minister has mentioned that she's seen the statistics, but this is what it looks like on the ground. On March 21st, 911 was called when Shetty Camp resident Nicole Laveau became seriously ill. The closest ambulance was Antigonish, more than 2 hours away. Volunteer firefighters arrived, including 2 off-duty paramedics who couldn't administer the medication or transport her. They had to leave her behind to retrieve an ambulance from the Shetty Camp base before finally getting her to care hours later. If those off-duty paramedics hadn't been there, the outcome could have been very worse. And we have amazing paramedics across this province. Will the minister commit to ensuring 24/7 on-duty paramedic coverage at the Shetty Camp base so no family is put in this position again?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Speaker. So as we've talked in the House before, we have a dynamic system. You know, the system is moving all the time towards areas where coverage is sparse because they're responding to other emergency calls. We'd start response to a 911 call as soon as dispatch speak to them. We have a doc in the box. We have medical first responders who are volunteer firefighters. We work with them and train them and work very hard with them as part of our emergency response. And certainly we're looking into some of the issues that the member brought up in his first question, and we'll be reaching out to community.
recognize the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Nova Scotia Power's rate increase is now official. The first 3.1% will kick in the next few weeks, and Nova Scotians will be facing higher bills again. By January of next year, the average Nova Scotian will be spending $600 more a year for power than they did when this government was elected. Yet the Energy Minister has offered no help to people to manage their even higher bills. When can Nova Scotians expect the Energy Minister to do more than just talk about helping people meet energy costs?
I recognize the Honourable Ministerial Assistant to the Honourable Minister of Energy.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. When you pay your power bill, about half that cost goes to fuel. Fuel that is volatile and that we don't have a whole lot of control over. Let's make that energy in our province here, Madam Speaker. Wind is the most affordable form of electricity that we can make. This summer, there are going to be many wind farms under construction, so I ask all members, take heed on the highway, and when you see a wind blade go by, give them a thumbs up.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm sorry. I thought I was asking the Energy Minister about Nova Scotia power bills that are set to skyrocket this month. The issues with Nova Scotia Power and high power bills are not a surprise. People have been struggling to afford power in our province for years. But instead of helping, this government has kicked 46,000 people off of the heating assistance rebate program. They have refused to put in place an affordable energy rate program for hundreds of thousands who need it, and they won't commit to reviewing how the company operates. Waving at windmills is not the advice that people want. Can the Energy Minister tell us today what real action would help people afford their bills now?
I recognize the Honourable Ministerial Assistant to the Honourable Minister of Energy.
Madam Speaker, we're making tremendous change in the whole energy sector here in the province. We're doing a full renovation. We've ripped her right back to the studs and we're building it back up. Madam Speaker, let's talk about Nova Scotia Power. We've carved ISO, the Independent Energy Systems Operator, out of Nova Scotia Power to bring competitiveness in generation of electricity in this province. Madam Speaker, we got to talk about energy sovereignty in this province. So we're looking at local natural gas. Not only are there economic benefits, but it'll stabilize prices, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Madam Speaker, Rosie Wyman has worked at the Port Hastings Visitor Information Centre for 20 years. She helps tens of thousands of visitors every season discover small local businesses in Cape Breton and beyond. She would normally be heading back to work next week to prepare for another busy season, but instead, the Port Hastings Visitor Information Centre has been closed as part of this government's misguided and harmful budget cuts, and Rosie is worried about the future of those businesses that visitors will now have to hunt to find. When will this government see that the damage their cuts to tourism will cause in the local business community this summer just aren't worth it?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Communities, Culture, Tourism and Heritage.
Madam Speaker, tourism matters in Nova Scotia, and it will always matter. $3.7 billion in this province. Madam Speaker, also want to remind the member there's 40 community VICs right across this province. We continue to support those VICs, and we'll continue to move forward with the VICs. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize recognize the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That's right, $3.7 billion. And there are VICs, but not at the Causeway, and not at the airport, and not at the various ports of entry to our most popular tourism destinations. Rosie is heartbroken that she won't be there to welcome tourists this year, including a growing number of Francophone visitors from Quebec who aren't traveling to the U.S. and are choosing to visit us instead. The visitor information centers were there to provide service in English and French, our two official languages, a service that Rosie told us will be greatly missed. Instead of capitalizing on the economic opportunities in tourism, this government is cutting back. Why is this government insisting on making decisions that will hurt rather than help our booming tourism sector?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Communities, Culture, Tourism and Heritage.
Madam Speaker, as I said before, tourism sector is growing. Tourism does matter in this province, Madam Speaker. Nova Scotia is ranked as a premier global travel destination to visit by Travel Leisure, Madam Speaker. An investment in $2.9 million in the regional air access, offering daily flights connecting Halifax, Sydney, Charlottetown, Fredericton, and Moncton, Madam Speaker, creating better connectivity to maritime provinces. We welcome everyone to Nova Scotia. Thank you so much.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Sydney, Member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. During this session, the host created a new riding of Shetty Camp, Margaret's, Pleasant Bay. But in doing so, they chose to ignore a clear recommendation from the Electoral Boundaries Commission to rename the district Inverness-Wakaba, reflecting the Mi'kmaq community in the area. That recommendation was grounded in respect, recognition, and accuracy. Can the Minister of Justice explain why the government chose to disregard the Independence Commission advice and move forward with a name that does not reflect all communities in the riding?
I recognize the Honourable Attorney General and Minister of Justice.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. I think it's absolutely wonderful for Cape Breton. It's absolutely wonderful for Nova Scotia. It's absolutely wonderful for the Acadian community that we're going to have another member of that community sitting here in the legislature sometime very soon. So that was the purpose of the Boundary Commission. They were tasked with making sure that we lived up to a court order to establish a new constituency here in Nova Scotia to support Acadian representation in the legislature. The Boundary Commission came back, recommended that we have the new riding of Shettigat Marguerite up in the Inverness, former Inverness riding. That's what their purpose was. That's what we did, Madam Speaker. I cannot wait for the results of that by-election.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Sydney, Member 2.
You didn't answer the question. Everybody supports the new riding, but you're disrespecting another Mi'kmaq community. Madam Speaker, as the member for Sydney, Member 2, it is a real privilege and honor to represent a riding whose name reflects the people who live there and the relationship with Indigenous communities. That's why it's so disappointing to see this government reject a simple, meaningful step like recognizing Wakaba in the name, especially in a session where we've seen cuts to Indigenous funding and a real strain on those relationships. This was a small but powerful opportunity to show respect, and the government chose not to take it. My question is for the Minister of Lanue Affairs. Can she explain why?
I recognize the Honourable Attorney General and Minister of Justice.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to highlight that every single member who voted on that piece of legislation voted in support of that legislation where we established that new riding of Shettigamp, Marguerite, and Pleasant Bay. Everybody voted for that. It was unanimous in support of that piece of legislation. That's the legislation that has put this in place. We cannot wait, as the Progressive Conservative Party and Government of Nova Scotia, to have a new MLA sitting with us here sometime in the near future, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Fairview Clayton Park.
Speaker, the childcare crisis is pushing families out of Nova Scotia. I spoke with a family in my riding who are moving away because they could not find childcare here. This was a young family with 2 working parents who could be contributing to our economy, but instead they were forced to move because they could not find care for their child, and that is unacceptable. Why do parents need to move outside Nova Scotia to find childcare?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development.
Madam Speaker, they don't. For those of us that live in HRM, our communities are growing. They're exploding, Madam Speaker. And so what I would say to the member is that we hit our mark of 9,500 and we're blown past it, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we are despite what the opposition wants to say, we are leading the country. That's not coming from us. That is coming from the other provinces and territories who...
Order.
And the member from Sackville wants to stand up.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If the member for Sackville-Cobequid has something to say, he can stand up. Madam Speaker, but the truth of the matter is we're at on average $12 a day. Over 4,000 families now don't pay a cent. Our child care rates are reduced by 50%, Madam Speaker, and we have blown past the 9,500. That's something that every member in this House should be proud of.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Fairview Clayton Park.
Those targets are for net new spaces, and the numbers that are being mentioned don't take into account the spaces that we have lost. Our province is in a tough financial spot, and we're not going to get out of it if we continue to push away working families who can't find care for their children. Last year, my riding lost 80 childcare spaces when the Children's Garden was forced closed, and even parents who have childcare are paying twice as much as parents in cities like Winnipeg, Charlottetown, and St. John's. While this government pats itself on the back, parents are still waiting and still spending more than they can afford. When can Nova Scotian families finally depend on accessible and affordable childcare in Nova Scotia?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development.
Madam Speaker, I'll remind the member opposite that we did not sign the child care agreement with them. We actually signed it with the federal government, and they approve of our numbers, they approve of our progress, and they are the ones telling us that we are doing a great job, Madam Speaker. We'll continue to work. We know there's more work to be done, Madam Speaker, and that's why we continue to invest in communities right across Nova Scotia. I'm very proud of the work that the people behind the scenes, the bureaucrats, the Department of Education, all of them have done on this, Madam Speaker. They bust their hump every day to find new spaces and create new spaces. And I also remind the member, we did something that no one else did. Pension and benefits for all of our workers who we deeply appreciate.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax-Chebucto.
Thank you, Speaker. In Halifax-Chebucto, it recently got a whole lot harder to find childcare when Friends for Life closed down on Windsor Street. This left parents scrambling and dozens of children looking for spaces. One parent reached out to my office several times because she said that she had no luck finding a space for her infant. Those are few and far between. Speaker, what is the minister doing to ensure that badly needed child care spaces don't disappear, leaving parents in the lurch?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development.
I want to thank the member for the question. What we're doing is we're investing in childcare, Madam Speaker. Over 9,500 spaces created, which is exactly what the federal government asked us to do, Madam Speaker. I'm reaching out to our federal MPs. I would ask the member just to turn to her left a little bit and talk to the Liberal caucus and ask them if they are speaking to the Nova Scotia has all Liberal MPs, Madam Speaker. We'll continue to work with our federal government, Madam Speaker. We're meeting with them. The deputies are meeting together, the bureaucrats are meeting together, Madam Speaker. We'll continue to work and we'll continue to invest in our very valuable childcare sector.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax-Chebucto.
Thank you, Speaker. What the minister is saying and what folks in Halifax-Chebucto are experiencing aren't matching up. When licensed spaces like these close in our community, it means parents pay more. Families in Nova Scotia are already paying double what families in other places like Charlottetown and St. John's are paying. It's an average, here you go. It's an average of $24 per infant spot. But it's even more for a private day home if you can't find a place in a licensed center. It's a lot more than the $10 that was promised. With the cost of living climbing, Speaker, families in my community need to know, when will they pay $10 a day?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The average price for Nova Scotia families right across the province is just around $12 a day, Madam Speaker. And I will say, anytime we lose a childcare space, obviously that is something that impacts us and something that we work hard to rectify. And that's why there's over 9,500 spaces created, Madam Speaker. Not only that, Madam Speaker, but we also, the pre-primary, Madam Speaker, the before and after school, which I know the opposition has said doesn't count as childcare. It actually is childcare, Madam Speaker, and it's something that gets
Order. Now, everybody's been pretty good today, but it seems like when certain members are talking, the room gets a little noisier. So I ask that we respect the person who has the floor. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development.
Pre-primary has saved parents.
So this whole room's designed so I can hear everything, right? Okay. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development.
I'll get an answer out eventually, Madam Speaker. What I would say is that we're investing heavily.
Order.
I took about 20 seconds. 25 seconds.
It's like it's Christmas morning. You're getting 5 seconds. Yeah. We stopped the clock the first time. The second time we did not. It was. So I recognize the Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And we've invested hundreds of millions of dollars in childcare. We'll continue to work with our childcare providers right across this province and the federal government.
Okay, we're missing. I recognize the Honourable Member for Lunenburg West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Cedar Place was a daytime drop-in space supporting housing vulnerable individuals on the South Shore. Its location near a school and businesses without adequate privacy posed challenges for community safety and for supporting people in crisis with dignity. I raised these concerns with the Department of Opportunities and Social Development and have spoken with the town and police. In February, when rumors of closure circulated, I wrote to the minister to support a transition, but stressed the need for alternate supports to be in place. Since Cedar Place closed at the end of March, the exact risks I identified are playing out. People have been displaced to other areas like the mall and green spaces and left with reduced supports. Why did the Minister of Opportunities and Social Development proceed with this closure without a plan to ensure continuity of services for both community safety and those who relied on Cedar Place?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Opportunities and Social Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Facts still matter. So what I want to reassure all of the community members from that community is we've had numerous meetings with the mayor and the community and the service providers there. There is a robust plan in place that the municipality is in favor of, the community is in favor of, and in fact, the situation has improved significantly already, Madam Speaker, and we're going to continue to support the community in the way that the municipality has asked us to do so.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Lunenburg West.
Madam Speaker, we've seen no evidence of a plan and there is no service. When service disappears, people do not. They are pushed elsewhere. Without access to washrooms, laundry, and supports, they are left to manage as best they can. And that is what is happening. This closure was communicated suddenly and unusually by the mayor on social media just one day after meeting with the Premier. The department shared no transition plan, no confirmed alternative location, and no meaningful communication with community. My question is this: was this truly the minister's decision made in the best interest of our community and the individuals Cedar Place serves, or is this yet another example of a minister carrying out the direction of the Premier to the disadvantage of Nova Scotians?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Opportunities and Social Development.
I think it was Michelle Obama who said when they go low, you go high, so that's what I'm going to choose to do, Madam Speaker. The member knows full well who the new service provider is. She shares an office space with them, Madam Speaker. There is a very robust plan put in place. The municipality came to us and said, these are the needs of our community, and we said, we're fully supporting you. We have a new service provider. There's a 30, 60, 90-day plan put in place, Madam Speaker. The situation has improved dramatically. There is a battle going on social media between the mayor and the member themselves, and I'm going to let that play out, Madam Speaker, but it is our responsibility to make sure that we're looking after the most vulnerable Nova Scotians in this province, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax Armdale.
Madam Speaker, I'm happy to ask the easiest question of the session. The government has not released the number of people on the Need of Family Practice Registry by region since August of 2024 due to a validation process. The Nova Scotia Health CEO told the Health Committee in this chamber this would be done by last October. The minister told us at the beginning of the session that it would be released in April. It's now April. When will this government release the number of people on the Need of Family Practice Registry broken down by riding or region?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Speaker. So certainly we have done an extensive work to validate the Need of Family Practice Registry, and there was an announcement done on the 26th of January, and we did commit that we would have an updated reporting form in April. There's 21 days left in April, so certainly that gives us a bit of runway in order to produce that report, and so we are committed to that. That's what we said we will do, and we'll deliver on that.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax Armdale.
Thank you, Minister, for that question. But since I won't see the minister again until to the fall, and it feels like Christmas, this question, could the minister give us a date in April?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you. No.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Sackville-Cobequid.
We've heard from multiple parents from Trenton Elementary and Middle Schools about the terrible conditions their children are learning in. Bad air quality and mold is leaving kids coughing and wheezing, getting headaches, nosebleeds, and itchy eyes. Miranda's small son attends Trenton Elementary. He needs to use nasal sprays, inhalers, and eye drops just to get through the day. When he's not in school, his symptoms go away. Miranda and many other parents are worried about potential long-term health effects. These schools should have been replaced decades ago. Why is this government dragging their feet and putting the health of these children at risk?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And decades ago, the NDP were in power, so maybe he should ask his own party wasn't replaced. But I would like to recognize the MLA for Trenton, who has done a tremendous amount of work, and that school is going to be replaced because of the efforts of that member.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Speaker, and yet hundreds of children suffer under these conditions right now. A new school is still years away, and these kids need help immediately. Parents have been asking for temporary classrooms, but they're still waiting. We also spoke with Renee, whose daughter has a constant cough and sore throat. Her symptoms also improve when she's not in school. We have a survey filled out by more than 60 parents. Most of their children experience some sort of health issue while attending these moldy, leaky, rundown schools. Why is the minister okay with kids learning in this type of environment?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I would throw that question back at the NDP, who did not replace that school when they were in power. In fact, it is this government that is going to replace it, Madam Speaker. So it shows that we are not comfortable with that. And that's why, again, I want to give credit to the member for Trenton for bringing this forward. And because of all his hard work, Madam Speaker, this issue will be finally addressed after decades and decades of being ignored.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Sydney, Member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I had an infrastructure question, but I want to go back to the previous question that I asked because it's important. And I'll say this, as a Cape Bretoner, I'm very excited for that by-election to happen, and our caucus is ready to put our best foot forward for the people of Shetty Camp. But the fact of the matter remains, there are ridings within this House that reflect Indigenous communities and its history. Sydney, Member 2, Truro, Bible Hill, Millbrook, Salmon River. It was out of respect, and it was out of consultation, and it was done with independence. And an independent report came back that said Wacoba should be in the name, and 2 ministers in this House won't answer the question, so I'm going to give them another shot. Why not?
I recognize the Honourable Attorney General and Minister of Justice.
Well, Madam Speaker, as I said before, the purpose of that boundary commission was for us to meet a court order to establish a new constituency for the Acadian population of Shetty Camp. And those boundaries have come back. We've agreed with that report. We put that in place. That was passed by every member of this legislature. In terms of the name of the other riding, we wanted to have the least bit of disruption we possibly could. And also, following the next general election, there will be a redistribution which is province-wide. And we'll see all kinds of different names, all kinds of different ridings. As the population of Nova Scotia changes, boundaries change. Names of ridings will change. So be patient. We'll look what happens when the boundary report comes back for the entire province, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Sydney, Member 2.
Be patient. An independent report came back. Show the respect to that First Nation community and its people. It's the easiest thing you can do right now. And yes, names change. The name initially was supposed to be Sydney, but we all fought to make sure Member 2 was reflected in the constituency name. I'm going to give the Minister of Lanue Affairs another chance, who represents those communities, to answer this question. This is the easiest thing the government can do right now, to show respect to that community and help rebuild relationships across this province. Will they respect the independence of that report and name that riding Inverness Wacoba?
I recognize the Honourable Attorney General and Minister of Justice.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, Inverness has a long tradition and history in this province. We support that traditional riding that has been in existence for a long time. There will be a whole boundary review across this province. Boundaries will change, names of boundaries will change, and there will be a province-wide boundary commission that will do that and make recommendations back to this legislature. The purpose of that boundary review was to establish a new seat for the Acadian population, Madam Speaker. That's what we did. Every member of this legislation supported that, and we will continue to support a new riding for the Acadian people in Shetty Camp. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Peer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A private company that's received more than $184 million in public funds over the last 8 years to care for vulnerable Nova Scotians is losing staff in droves. Ardent Client Care, for some reason, hasn't been filing taxes and didn't provide tax advice or T4As to its contractors. Now, a CRA audit has workers quitting in fear of financial ruin, and remaining workers are being asked to work 66-hour weeks to fill the gaps. Can the Minister of Opportunities and Social Development explain how this happened and why this government isn't making sure that companies paid with public money are following the law?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Opportunities and Social Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member for this important question. The first thing I want to do is reassure all Nova Scotians that their loved ones are getting excellent care to the standards that our department sets for them. That is first and foremost. To the suggestion that they're leaving in droves, that simply isn't true. Madam Speaker, that is a rumor, and I hate it when opposition spread rumors in this House. Madam Speaker, what I want to reassure all Nova Scotians, this is an issue between the federal government and the staff who work for this facility. And so if they have questions about CRA and their requirements for people to pay their income taxes, I would direct the members to speak with them. Thank you.
This is going. I recognize the honourable member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Speaker, I have in fact spoken to some of these workers, and there is a CBC report that I've tabled. The Auditor General found that in recent years, this company has provided 83% of emergency placements for children in care. This is a major contractor, and there's been a clear failure of oversight from this government. The Department of Opportunities and Social Development requires a staffing ratio of 2 workers to 1 client. But now some Arden houses are being staffed by only 1 contractor at a time. Workers say that this is a safety issue for staff and clients. What is the minister doing to ensure that workers are safe and clients have the care they need?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Opportunities and Social Development.
Madam Speaker, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Words matter, facts matter, and saying things that are deliberately scaring the public is not acceptable. The care of all of these service providers is set based on the needs of the residents of those communities. If the requirement is for 2-to-1 staffing, that is exactly what they're getting, Madam Speaker. And there is a very robust process in place, both at the Department of Seniors and Long-Term Care, as well as at the Department of Opportunities and Social Development, to provide unannounced visits, scheduled visits, and an audit process that ensures that everyone is getting the care that they need, Madam Speaker. And we're going to continue to make sure that Nova Scotians, especially our most vulnerable, receive the care that they need.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Speaker, we all know that Nova Scotia Power is unreliable at best. People living in the Manor Park land lease community in Walker Avenue area of Sackville-Cobequid know this all too well. Folks there have lost power at least 16 times, and that's just this year, often for hours at a time. Whenever Sackville has an outage, they're usually the first to lose it and amongst the last to get it back. I've heard from multiple residents who've reached out for help. When will the Minister of Energy take action on Nova Scotia Power's unreliable service?
I recognize the Honourable Ministerial Assistant to the Honourable Minister of Energy.
Feels good to stretch the legs, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, that's not acceptable. And Nova Scotians deserve better. And I've said it before, but having the long-term planning belong to ISO Nova Scotia, an independent body that does not have to report to shareholders. They report to Nova Scotians. That's a step in the right direction. And earlier this spring, there was a general rate application made down the street here. And in our submission to the Energy Board, we said, hey, do a better job, Nova Scotia Power.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Sackville-Cobequid.
These unacceptable and constant power outages are hurting people in my community. They're paying their expensive bills. They're doing everything right. But these power outages means they can't work from home, cook, or clean. Some have even lost expensive perishable medicines like insulin because their fridges don't stay cold. People are frustrated, and it's easy to see why. Nova Scotia Power just failed to meet its reliability standard for the 9th year in a row, and customers now are dealing with yet another price hike. When will the Minister of Energy finally take action to rein in Nova Scotia Power and make sure the utility actually keeps the lights on for Nova Scotians.
I recognize the Honourable Ministerial Assistant of the Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And in that submission to the Energy Board that we made earlier this spring, we had a strong argument for why those rate increases were not deserved and why performance targets are so incredibly important to meet. We're disappointed that the general rate increase went through. I mean, we respect the independence of the board, and it'd be dangerous to overturn or to go against that process that they deliver. There's guardrails for a reason. In terms of, oh, here we go.
Order. I recognize the Honourable Member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Health. Nova Scotians' own reporting under the Canada Health Act says that residents who are medically referred outside of the province for insured treatment are eligible for coverage, and that services in other provinces are covered through reciprocal agreements, and that Nova Scotia pays the host province rates. Yet I am hearing from patients who are being denied access to specialists in Moncton, and of cancer patients waiting longer for appointments in Halifax when they could be seen much sooner, only 40 minutes away in New Brunswick. This is delaying diagnosis and delaying life-saving treatments, and it is affecting mortality. Can the minister share why the government is placing interprovincial barriers to block timely care for patients when that care is available, insured, and closer to home?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So certainly there's a couple of things there. So we do work very hard in the provinces, the Atlantic provinces, to work together, and certainly looking at ways in which we can support one another in terms of services. So, you know, on a regular basis, the ministers, particularly from New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, and myself meet to talk about some of those services that need to be shared. And I appreciate that there are special circumstances around border communities. We continue to work to make sure that there's capacity in the communities surrounding the area to make sure that people can get timely access to care, and we'll continue to do that.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Premier says he wants to remove interprovincial barriers, but in healthcare, it appears we're doing the opposite. Patients should be at the very centre of every healthcare decision. Nova Scotia reports that pre-approved medically necessary services provided in Canada are insured at 100%. So if patients are not getting access to faster specialists and oncology care in Moncton, that is not a federal barrier. Rather, it is a provincial barrier being created here by this government. Will the minister commit today to review and remove any policy, directive, or approval practice that is preventing Nova Scotia patients from being referred to doctors and diagnostic services in New Brunswick when it means they would receive faster care and better outcomes?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Speaker. And as I said, certainly we work very hard within our own provinces to provide care to individuals as close to home as we can. And certainly in regards to cancer patients, as an example, 95% of people are able to receive the majority of their care close to home because of the investments that we've made in cancer care. As I've said, we continue to work across our provincial borders with New Brunswick and PEI to understand the needs of patients, the needs of citizens in all three provinces, and we will continue to do that.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax Citadel, Sable Island.
Speaker, yesterday the Minister for Colonial Affairs said she had met with every Mi'kmaq chief in the last year, but it doesn't seem like she's been taking their advice. For instance, 6 different chiefs from across the province put out releases last month alone condemning this government for refusing to work with Mi'kmaq communities on cannabis laws. Can the minister tell us what advice she has received from the Mi'kmaq chiefs she has met with in the past year?
I recognize the Honourable Minister for All New Affairs.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You did a good job on pronouncing it. It's old new. It's great. You did wonderful. And thank you for the question opposite. And what I would say to that is I can't summarize in 36 seconds all of the advice that I would have received over the course of the last year that I've been in the position. But what I would say is that respectful dialogue requires sometimes applying what can be done and what we can do, and also being honest and upfront of what we maybe can't do, and having those discussions openly and upfront. What I've seen in the past and what I want to do differently is not to overpromise and underdeliver, but to work together and have those conversations. And sometimes they make headlines and sometimes they don't, but we do a lot of great work together, and we'll work through difficult conversations together. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Speaker, the budget that this government just passed included $1.6 million in cuts to Indigenous programs and services. 13 programs had their funding completely eliminated, including 9 from the Office of All New Affairs, including the Treaty Day Awards ceremony. For decades, this government has celebrated Treaty Day by recognizing the achievements of elders and awarding scholarships to youth. It's the 40th anniversary just months away, and there is no funding. Which chiefs has the minister responsible for All New Affairs met with about her government's cuts to Mi'kmaq communities?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of All New Affairs.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And the chiefs know that I have an open door policy. They can reach out to me absolutely anytime. As these reductions or as these scale backs were happening, we have ongoing conversations. My team, my staff have met during this House session to help work through that. I've had meetings, I've talked to people during this House session to talk about how we can work differently moving forward in the future. We've found some solutions already, and we continue to work together to find more solutions as we work forward in the future. It's about working smarter together, and we're on that path right now. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Back in 1985, Kathy Vino's family donated a number of artifacts to the McCullough House Museum in Pictou County. When she learned about the government's cuts that would force the museum and others to close, she wanted to know what would happen to them. The museum told her they had received no direction from the government. The museum can't tell her what will happen to the artifacts. The government won't tell her. Did the government give any thought to this? And what is the plan for the artifacts in all the museums that are closing?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Community Cultures, Tourism and Heritage. Come on. Order, come on. Order, please. The time allotted for order, please. The time allotted for oral questions put by members to ministers has expired. I recognize the honourable member for Kings West.
Madam Speaker, I beg leave to make an introduction.
Please do.
Madam Speaker, it's a little unorthodox introduction. This morning at 8:55 a.m., my daughter Emma gave birth to my first granddaughter, Lydia Faith Wade, and 8 pounds 3 ounces. So I'd like to ask all of members of the House to welcome my new granddaughter to this world. Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Deputy Government House Leader.
Speaker, would you please call order of business public bills and orders?
No, yeah, okay, good. I recognize the, I'm sorry. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
That was on me. Madam Speaker, I hereby request the following motion be adopted without notice pursuant to Rule 32.5 of the Rules and Forms of the Procedure of the House of Assembly. Be resolved that all congratulatory motions deposited with the clerk pursuant to the Rule 32.3 of the Rules and Forms of the Procedure of the House Assembly from February 23rd, 2026 to the rising of the House today that have not been otherwise considered by the House of Assembly be approved.
Would all those in favour of the motion indicate aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried. I recognize the Honourable Deputy Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaker, would you please call the order of business, public bills and orders?
Public bills and orders. I recognize the Honourable Deputy Government House Leader.
Speaker, would you please call bills for third reading?
Bills for third reading. I recognize the Honourable Deputy Government House Leader.
Speaker, would you please call bill number 186, support for Fire Protection Services Act?
Bill 186, Support for Fire Protection Services Act. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Emergency Management.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move that Bill 186, an act to provide support for fire protection services, be now read a third time and do pass. We've introduced the Support for Fire Protection Services Act to strengthen fire services across Nova Scotia. This legislation establishes provincial oversight for municipally led fire services where they exist now and into the future under the Department of Emergency Management, so there's a clear home and a clear line of accountability. As I've stated before, fire commissions and fire services that are not currently municipally led will be left unchanged. We've heard clearly through consultations that some areas do not want municipally led fire services for a number of reasons, and we respect that. This act allows us to set up province-wide standards, to standardize firefighting training and certification, to establish consistent requirements for personal protective equipment, and improve municipal and fire services provider planning, reporting, and service delivery. It will create an Office of the Fire Commissioner to provide provincial oversight and to support municipalities and fire service providers. Every municipality and every fire service provider will also be required to conduct a fire protection services review to ensure evidence-based decisions and confirm departments have the equipment, the training, and the capacities that their communities require. In addition, we will continue to strengthen and standardize training for all firefighters, support bulk procurement to reduce costs for fire departments to purchase vehicles, equipment, and insurance, to improve health and wellness supports, including mental health, to enhance dispatch alignment, interoperability, and mutual aid, and support firefighter recruitment and retention. This legislation delivers clarity. It delivers consistency, accountability, and stronger fire protection for communities across Nova Scotia. This didn't come out of nowhere, Mr. Speaker. Over the past year, we've done a lot of listening through the value for money audit of the Nova Scotia Firefighters School, the Fire Service Association of Nova Scotia's governance review, and in person, meeting with over 700 fire chiefs, deputy chiefs, fire service coordinators, and municipal leaders across the province. This legislation is the next step in addressing what we heard. But I would like to clarify, Mr. Speaker, that the consultations conducted over the last year are certainly not the end. I understand there are still questions from municipalities and fire protection service sector. There is more listening and more collaborating to do. Our doors will remain open and we'll reach out to hear from the fire services sector, municipalities, on how to move forward with regulations that prioritize keeping firefighters and Nova Scotians safe. These regulations will be phased in over multiple years, and we will work with the fire sector to build their capacity to understand and meet the standards. I've heard concerns that all decisions have been made regarding the path forward. I want all fire services in Nova Scotia to know they have not. The decisions, the details of how we move forward are still to be determined, and we will do that in collaboration with our fire departments and our municipalities. These are things that will be worked out in regulations, and anyone who would like to express their thoughts on that process will certainly have an opportunity to do so. As I said, my door is always open, and I expect the new fire commissioner, once hired through a competitive process, to do the same. Another thing I've been hearing is that the legislation takes the fire department's right to fundraise away. This is not true, Mr. Speaker. With this legislation, what this legislation does, it removes the requirement for fire departments to fundraise to purchase the essential equipment needed, including personal protective equipment. Fire departments will still be able to have their 50-50s, their barbecues, their bake sales, other fundraisers to raise money for any other things, but they shouldn't have to fundraise for basic equipment. Mr. Speaker, questions about how the funding model will look will be worked out over the next 3 years with municipalities and fire services providers to build capacity to transition to a new fire service delivery model. I've also heard some of the members of this House cite a lack of consultation during this whole process. To that, I would simply like to say, Mr. Speaker, words matter, just like our volunteer firefighters matter. That's why, as I mentioned a few moments ago, we've met with over 700 fire chiefs, deputy chiefs, fire coordinators, and municipal leaders across Nova Scotia. And I'll gladly table our schedule of engagements, our engagement sessions that we had just from this year alone. I'll table that. We can't make these changes alone, Mr. Speaker. We invited the fire services to the table. We've heard their expertise, and we have listened. Other members of this House have cited uneven funding models. Mr. Speaker, an uneven funding model is what we have now. It's what we are working to fix. FSANS called for fire services to be municipally led. Right now, 17 municipalities have no relation with fire services. 25 already support fire departments, and 9 have a hybrid model. And since we've started this conversation across Nova Scotia, 5 of the 17 municipalities not connected to fire services have reached out to ask for presentations, and they are interested on how they can move forward. We're here to help them do that, Mr. Speaker. As you can see, Mr. Speaker, there are still details to work through this, and we will. We're committed to working through them together and finding solutions that are practical and, most importantly, sustainable, because we care deeply about our firefighters and our fire service. It's the very reason why my department has quadrupled funding for fire departments, GSAR, and hazmat groups throughout the province through the Emergency Services Provider Fund. I'll say that again, Mr. Speaker, quadrupled funding this year. And we will continue to do more. Mr. Speaker, there's a reason we started this process this session. The complex and fragmented system of today has led to inconsistent levels of service across the province. And we know all too well that gaps in training standards and safety provisions have had dire consequences. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. We can and we must do better. And now is the time to start. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Lunenburg West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to rise at third reading on Bill 186, the Fire Protection Services Support Act. And I want to say at the outset that I appreciate and deeply support the fire departments and the many, many community members who dedicate time and effort with great risk and personal cost to supporting those fire departments. And I also support the modernization of our fire services framework. I think it's unquestionable that this need for change is overdue, deserved, and I don't believe it's contested. I do want to reiterate and register some concerns that I have heard and do have with the process that got us here, because I think that that's important to note and is also important for the minister and the department and communities as they move forward. So I will say I've heard from a number of community members about this legislation. Many support the purpose and the direction of the bill and some of the specifics that are intended to be addressed by this, including training opportunities, standardization, and operational concerns. I've heard from others, though, who were concerned, and one of the concerns that was expressed was the speed with which this bill went through and the question of consultation. And so one association that I heard from struggled to even be able to present an organized response for committee because of how quickly this bill went through the House. First and second reading were completed days within the introduction of the bill, and then less than a week after tabling, it did go to committee. Recognizing that our fire departments and the people who serve them are busy, dedicated people who have other responsibilities and roles and jobs, this is a really quick turnaround. And it's particularly important because the version of the bill that was tabled was different than the version that was shared, or the concepts that were shared in the consultations that the minister mentioned. And so when that happens, even if you've done significant consultation, if there are last-minute changes, it leaves the people who have been consulted with flat-footed in terms of being able to respond quickly and reply and provide input. So I think that these are concerns that are valid concerns. And I'm really glad to hear the minister say that there are plans to continue listening and collaborating. And I think that there are lessons to be learned in how this has unfolded as that collaboration and that listening exercise moves forward. One of the concerns that was raised as well is that there may end up being a one-size-fits-all approach that will harm rural and volunteer fire departments. I think it seems to me, and I'm hopeful that this bill is broad enough that that will not be the case, that the standardization that is required in terms of service will be able to be implemented while still respecting the necessary differences and accounting for the necessary differences between departments that exist, between departments that exist in urban centers that have broader tax bases versus volunteer departments, usually in rural areas that often rely more significantly on fundraising. Also respecting the differences in terms of just geography and other ways in which our departments differ from one another. And so I'm hopeful that that will be considered, and I do believe that that the Act does provide for the breadth of that, and the consultation and engagement that happens moving forward, I think will be necessary to ensure that whatever is built and created under this structure does meet everyone's needs. I was also pleased to hear the minister comment on the inconsistency of funding being one of the reasons why this is moving forward. And I think it's important to recognize those inconsistencies, but I think that we need to see more than just lip service to that. The minister herself did manage to secure significant capital funding to a fire department in her own constituency, capital funding that existed outside of any actual programs, that didn't get made available to other fire departments in other areas of the province. And when asked directly whether she would create a transparent, predictable, and equitable capital funding stream, the minister didn't answer. And so I appreciate her comments now that this bill is intended to help address those funding inconsistencies, but I think our communities and our fire departments need more than that general comment. They need some confidence that that will happen. Our communities deserve that equity. So those are really the things that I wanted to share. Again, I support the direction, I support the modernization. Our fire departments and the people who support them and support our communities deserve investment and deserve this attention. I am hopeful that the minister and the department has learned the lessons that this process thus far have offered, and that what comes out the other side of this bill once it's passed and the additional work is done to build the structures and standards and funding opportunities that the minister's described meet the needs of all of our communities and meet the needs of all of our fire departments. And so with those words, I look forward to hearing others' comments on this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Peer.
Speaker, we support our firefighters and departments. We will support this bill.
I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to speak to Bill 186 to support the Fire Protection Services Act. And in preparing my notes for this bill to rise and speak to this in third reading, it brings out a lot of emotion, and I'm sure I'm not the only one here in the chamber. Maybe I am, but I don't think so. Our firefighters do so much for us, and most of them, I believe 95% of them, are actually volunteer as well. They run to danger when we run away, and I want to start my comments, Madam Speaker, by thanking all of the volunteer firefighters throughout all of Nova Scotia, and in particular the ones that serve in my area and in my colleagues' area next door, because we often have shared services, and they help each other out. When one department is out fighting a fire, the other ones will provide backup. So I want to start by acknowledging Wallace Volunteer Fire Department and all the firefighters there, Pugwash Volunteer Fire Department, Shinnemakas Volunteer Fire Department, and that is the one that served the area where I grew up. They serve the area surrounding of Northport and Linden. Tidnish Bridge Fire Department, and some people may remember hearing about that fire department when their deputy chief passed away very tragically. She was the woman, Alison Holtoff, that died very tragically in the emergency department at Cumberland Regional just a couple of years ago on New Year's Eve. So Tidnish Bridge, Trumanville Volunteer Fire Department, and Amherst Fire Department. And I want to acknowledge the work of the minister, as well as all of those that were involved in the preparation for this bill before us here at third reading. I won't go through all of the fire departments in my colleague's area, and he, of course, is a former fire chief, I think, for Oxford in Cumberland South. But I will acknowledge a couple of them that have invited me to their banquets and work very closely with mine, and that's Collingwood, as well as Leicester and Oxford and Wentworth. There's many, and we're very blessed in our area to have a very strong volunteer support. We have a lot of young people. In fact, Pugwash just got a new chief, and Alex Mundell, and he's a young gentleman, and we're so proud to have him serve in our area. And I want to thank Andy Yarrow for his many years of service as the fire chief for that area. I think one of the reasons that I'm feeling a little bit emotional around this is one of my dear friends who just passed. I feel like I need to honor her. In speaking about this bill, she was the president of the Women's Auxiliary for the Amherst Fire Department. Just give me a second. And her celebration of life was at the Amherst Fire Hall. That's where it was held. And her husband is a paid firefighter now with the Amherst Fire Department. Thank you so much. And I just want to acknowledge them. They covered the costs. Not the fire department, but the auxiliary covered all of the costs entirely for Christine McDonald's funeral, in gratitude for the service of her husband and the gratitude for her service, serving the Women's Auxiliary. And when I think back of my time with Christine, other than her boys, her 3 boys, nothing made her prouder than the service that she gave to her community through the fire department. And having her celebration of life there was really just perfect. It was very difficult for everyone, but it was just perfect. And her husband and her 3 boys had no idea that they were going to cover all of the costs, and they did. And I just want to commend them for that. It was a beautiful thing, and it really honored her life. So I wanted just to acknowledge that today, Madam Speaker. So in saying that, I think what I just shared, it symbolizes what we see in our fire departments. It really is family. They go through thick and thin together, and they serve our communities with such courage and strength. And that's why I wanted to share that, Madam Speaker. It just speaks so much. So I want to say thank you to the Minister for bringing this bill forward. There are some things that I think my colleague from Lunenburg West has already shared. There were some concerns shared. And it is more not just directed at this bill, Madam Speaker, but directed, I would say, in general at the way legislation does go through the chamber. It's very fast, doesn't give the public a great deal of time to see the bills and to come and speak at Public Bills Committee, which many of them would have wanted to do. And one of the presentations that we did see there did provide some scrutiny and some feedback of how this could have been maybe improved. So I think that would be one of the takeaways, I think, from this bill. And also, I remember when it was tabled, I was surprised that such an important bill would have been tabled the same day as the budget, because it would have been nice, I think, for the minister to have more oxygen on this bill that she brought forward. It's important and affects all the communities here in the province of Nova Scotia. But because it was tabled on the same day as the budget, it kind of got missed, it kind of got hidden with all of the hoopla that comes with a budget. So I wanted to share those couple of comments. And I think we all know from what we've seen happen with the fire school in the past, we all know that changes are needed, and there's no question about that. I do think that I know that there's some coverage now for firefighters, but I do want to acknowledge another thing before I close my remarks on this bill, Madam Speaker, and that is, in addition to the obvious risk that firefighters put themselves in, they are also exposed to a lot of chemicals and have higher rates of cancer as a result of it. And I want to acknowledge one of my news staff, Martha McCory. She lost her husband, who was a firefighter. She lost her husband, I think it was around 10 years ago, but he was a firefighter and believed that it was cancer was directly related to his service as a firefighter. And I want to acknowledge that today. And even Christine's husband has had cancer, and she passed away from colorectal cancer, sadly. But I want to acknowledge that our firefighters do a lot, and they put themselves in direct risk, but also in indirect risk through the higher being exposed to these chemicals and being exposed to higher rates of cancer and other illnesses. So we need to do all we can to support them in all ways with this bill, but also with funding and fair funding for all. And I want to lastly acknowledge the leadership of the Amherst Fire Department, Andrew Wallace, and all of those that have been involved. And it was they were the ones that led the 50-50 for firefighters here in the province that started during the pandemic, and that has benefited so many fire departments throughout the province with extra funding to be able to buy equipment and to support the work that they do. And I know my colleague in Cumberland South, one of his fire departments, they invited myself and the municipality to come for a tour, and I think with their part of their funding, they put a new gym in the fire. They have a new fire department, and they put in a beautiful new gym for all of the firefighters there. So I want to acknowledge the great work that the volunteers did and how beneficial that 50-50 draw is, and hope all of us support it and support our local fire departments. And with those few words, I will sit, but I want to say I do support this bill and thank the minister and her department for the work.
If I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and heard a lot of passionate debate the last few weeks, and obviously everybody knows this is a topic that I'm very passionate about. So I do stand here as an MLA, but also an MLA with a lot of experience in the fire service. 21 years as a firefighter. 17 of those years were as a chief officer, Madam Speaker. Past president of the Maritime Fire Chiefs Association and a vice president of the Fire Service Association of Nova Scotia, Madam Speaker. So when I received the phone call from the Premier asking me to assist the minister on this file, Do you think I jumped at that opportunity pretty quick? I did. To get to see some of my old comrades, some of my old friends. I've heard a lot of firefighters all across this province about this bill. And in fact, Madam Speaker, I'll speak a little bit about my experience with the Fire Service Association. This isn't something new to the Fire Service Association, this bill. This consultation actually started decades ago about this bill, Madam Speaker. But quite honestly, this is the first government to move it to the next steps, Madam Speaker. And I'm not saying that as a dig to any political party. It's the time. It's past the time, but it's time that things do have to be done. We all know the story around the fire school. We need some positive change here. Madam Speaker, I was blessed in the town of Oxford to be the fire chief. We had a municipality that supported their firefighters. When it came time for a new vehicle to be purchased, we had a capital plan for the future. When it came time for a new fire station, we didn't get any grants or funding from the province, from the feds. Madam Speaker, that municipality, our volunteers, and our great ladies auxiliary at the time, they built our new fire station in 2014. We're very proud of that fire station in Oxford. And Madam Speaker, around Oxford, the municipality of Cumberland, the municipality of the town of Amherst, we've been very fortunate in Cumberland County. All the fire service has had the support of the municipalities. That's not the fact all across the province, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when firefighters get back from a call and they have to hand a hat around to do a collection to ensure they have enough fuel in that truck to respond to their residents, the next call, Madam Speaker, there's something wrong. And this has been going on for decades. This has been going on for decades, Madam Speaker. So it is time. And I've heard concern from some of my friends that have called over the last few weeks, last few months. What does this bill mean? Where are we going with it? There are going to be concerns, Madam Speaker. Change is hard. But one thing, everybody that called me, change is needed in this service. Change is needed. One of the things the fire service asked for, one of the main things, Madam Speaker, was to have it province-wide, municipally led. So there are going to be some changes for some fire services. There are going to be some huge steps. But Madam Speaker, the loud and clear message I did hear from the firefighters, some of my colleagues, past colleagues, they're ready for those steps. The minister has stated many times in those consultations, I was at a lot of those consultations with the minister. It was just like a homecoming, to be honest, Madam Speaker, but this isn't going to happen overnight. I think the years that the minister has talked about is around a 3-year target. There are going to be some major steps. There are going to be hurdles. And I know the minister doesn't want to hear it. It's not going to be easy a lot of the times. There are going to be some difficult discussions. But Madam Speaker, our government, and from what I'm hearing, all the members on the opposite side are going to support this bill. And that's a great thing for the province of Nova Scotia. And I'll tell you why, Madam Speaker. It wasn't just the members of the fire service in Nova Scotia that I heard about. I was given a lot of opportunity to meet firefighters from coast to coast in this great province. A great opportunity. And I've heard from some of those colleagues all across this country. Man, I wish we had a government that would finally listen to us as well and move the needle forward. We have an opportunity here in Nova Scotia. We're all agreeing that this step needs to take place. Fantastic. And I just want to recognize one individual, but there's been a lot of people that have helped out in this step. Like I said, consultation for this has gone on for decades. But Madam Speaker, we'd be remiss if we didn't recognize the president of the Fire Service Association in Nova Scotia. We have to recognize, and it's only one individual I'm going to name today. There's a lot of people that are behind Greg Jones. Chief of Amherst, as a colleague just mentioned, President of the Fire Service Association in Nova Scotia. There's one thing that we have in the fire service, Madam Speaker. You want to be able to follow your leaders wherever they go. And I'll tell you right now, Madam Speaker, I'd follow Greg Jones wherever he went. He's done a great job for our fire service in Nova Scotia. He even represents many different positions at different times. The Fire Service Association of Canada as well. And has done a great job of sharing the story of what's happening in Nova Scotia. Country, one coast to the other, and we are leading the pack in a lot of situations in the fire service. Right here in Nova Scotia, we're leading the pack in things, standards. We were the first province to actually have a standard with the cancer recovery. As I'm thinking of my colleague sitting in front of me, he would know, past member of the Fire Service Association of Nova Scotia as well. There's a tremendous amount of pride, but I wanted to recognize Chief Greg Jones. I wanted to recognize the fact that this is the first time, even when I was president of the Maritime Fire Chiefs Association, I never received so many calls. This is a good piece of legislation, Madam Speaker. Obviously, yes, I'm going to support it. I've had a great time the last few months getting to catch up with colleagues, and I'm very, very glad of the work that the department's doing. Very glad to hear that everybody in this House is going to be supporting our fire service all across this province, whether they're volunteer or career. They deserve every amount of respect that we can give them here today. I will support this bill.
I recognize the honourable member for Sydney, member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm just going to get up for a few minutes here and speak in favour. We're supporting the bill. I do want to recognize that there are a number of folks on all sides of the floor here that serve their communities in a volunteer capacity, firefighter and a member from Glace Bay. I was down in Oxford, saw that, the new station. There are others around here, and I want to thank you all for your service to communities across Nova Scotia, and to all firefighters and everybody involved, whether it's volunteer or career. I have both, being in the riding of City Member 2, City River Volunteer Fire Department, and our career fire women and men with the Cape Breton Regional Municipality. And I want to recognize the department too as well. I know a lot of work went into this. I want to recognize the minister. She speaks very passionately about this. I know she put a lot of work into it. And not all the recommendations have been implemented, but we are very supportive of the bill because we believe that this is a step in the right direction. We hear the challenges that volunteer fire departments across the island face when it comes to trying to recruit and retain and trying to be sustainable over the long run. And it's important. So I just will officially say this very quickly. Madam Speaker, I'm glad to speak at third reading of Bill 186, the Support for Fire Protection Services Act. Again, I want to thank our firefighters, chiefs, and volunteers who risk their lives to protect our communities and keep Nova Scotians safe. The bill reflects in part the work undertaken by the Fire Services Association of Nova Scotia in its 2025 governance study, and I want to thank the association for the work. There's still a lot of work ahead, and as we begin to implement these changes, we will be voting in favor of this bill that moves us towards a more coordinated and modern fire services framework. While it does not implement all of the FSAN's recommendations, the bill responds to a clear call to improve governance and coordination. In particular, it adopts the standardization definition of firefighter, which will help create clarity across jurisdictions. It requires municipalities to conduct fire protection service reviews aligning with the recommendation for more structured, evidence-based planning, and it provides a process for annual risk assessments, which is a positive move towards continuous improvement. These measures will make our fire services more consistent and accountable while still allowing communities to have flexibility. This is essential in a province like Nova Scotia where community needs vary significantly. We have communities on the coast that might need firefighting boats. We have rural communities that rely on volunteer fire departments. Our laws must allow communities to do the firefighting work they need to do. And as I've heard concerns from firefighters about how, and we've heard some concerns from firefighters about how the government plans to implement the bill, we just want to make sure firefighters have a seat at the table. The bill originally created some concerns. I think we've mostly gotten past those, Madam Speaker, but as the government moves forward with designing offices like the Fire Commissioner, it's essential that they consult and allow firefighters to have their say in the process. Because the creation of an Office of Fire Commissioner is a big deal. It will coordinate fire prevention efforts across the province, encourage collaboration between municipalities and fire services, oversee training, and report to the minister on the state of fire services in Nova Scotia. Hopefully this will lead to a stronger provincial leadership and coordination, but only if it's properly implemented. If implemented effectively, the office could become a powerful force to improve standards, share best practices, and address gaps. But on behalf of firefighters I've heard from, I will ask the Minister of Emergency Management to assure her department gets the details right, which I'm sure they will. Fire services are increasingly integrated with broader emergency management systems, and hopefully this bill and the accompanying regulations will align firefighters more closely with other first responders under the Department of Emergency Management. The reforms in this bill come at an important time. We all know that Nova Scotia needs stronger oversight of firefighter training, consistent training standards, and clear accountability. We need to do better by our firefighters. When this bill passes, there is still much work to do. There are still significant parts of the FSAM's implementation roadmap that are not in this bill. I trust that the minister will work with the firefighters across Nova Scotia to continue to implement these important changes. And overall, Madam Speaker, this bill represents a good step forward. It provides a solid foundation for future improvements. Our party will be voting in favour of this bill. Thank you.
If I am to recognize the Honourable Minister of Emergency Management, it will be to close debate on third reading. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Emergency Management.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank my colleagues for their comments. What a way to end a session. Feels pretty good. This has been a journey of advocacy for so long. As my colleague mentioned, 50 years, 8 reports, no action. When I became Minister of DEM, the first thing I said to my Deputy Minister when she asked what my goals were for the department, I said, I want to improve the fire service. And she grabbed my hands and said, thank God for you. So I know she's probably watching right now and is probably a little emotional, as I am too, because we have put so much work into this legislation. I have traveled the last year from one end of the province to the other, meeting with fire chiefs, deputy chiefs, municipal CAOs, anyone that would talk to me. Anyone that would explain to me how we can make things better for them in the fire service. And I want to thank all of them for taking the time. I mean, I know they spend so much time themselves in training, but for taking the time to sit with me so that I could understand how we can actually make things better for them and how it can be sustainable. I do want to just mention the Blackie family. And I want to say thank you for everything you have done, your support. This is for you. It's for you. And I also want to thank Greg Jones. As my colleague mentioned, Greg Jones, the FSANS president, has been by my side this entire year, meeting with folks. And we had some pretty difficult situations. There are times when you walk into a fire department and people don't like change and, you know, like become very protective. But when you engage and you have that opportunity to learn and to listen, and people trust and understand that you are there for the right reason and that you are going to do something to help, there develops a mutual respect. And I have to say, I will always be the biggest fan of our fire department members in this province, because I've had the opportunity this last year to spend one-on-one time with them and to have those tough conversations. And it has certainly been something that I will never forget, and it'll be a highlight of my career. I know that the waters are still not calm. We've got some rough waters ahead to get through this, but we're going to implement those over 3 years, and we're going to do this working together. And that is, I think, how you get good legislation, good regulations, by working together. I also want to thank the FTAC committee and all the volunteers that are part of that to talk about how we go forward with training. And I want to thank the staff at the Department of Emergency Management. Those people show up every day with their hearts pounding with love and respect for people, of how they can make sure we're safe in our province. And they are just such dedicated employees of this province, and they do their work with such pride, so thank you. I have to say, as my colleague mentioned, some of the stories that I heard from our fire departments and firefighters, when I sat with them and they talked about, you know, they have to do bingos every Tuesday night to have funds to buy breathing apparatuses or bunker gear, or that they're, you know, having breakfast twice a month to keep the lights on in a fire department. Those hit home. They hit home hard. because I know what they do every day when that alarm goes off. So I want the fire departments, all firefighters out there, career and volunteer, I hear you, I see you, I respect you, and you've got a minister that's going to do whatever in the hell she can to make sure you're protected. Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Emergency Management.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With that, a few comments. I move to close debate.
The motion is for third reading of Bill 186, Support for Fire Protection Services Act. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried.
Bill 186, an act to provide support for fire protection services.
Order that the bill do pass and the title be as read by the clerk. Ordered that the bill be engrossed. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, that concludes government business for the session. I ask for a brief recess as we await the arrival of the LG.
We will have a short recess. Thank you very much. Let His Honor, the Lieutenant Governor, be admitted.
It is the wish of His Honor the Lieutenant Governor that everyone present be seated.
May it please Your Honor, the General Assembly of the province has, at its present session, passed certain bills to which, in the name and on behalf of the General Assembly, I respectfully request Your Honor's assent.
In His Majesty's name, I assent to these bills.
Bill number 186, an act to provide support for fire protection services. Bill number 190, an act to amend Chapter 158 of the Acts of 1919, an act to incorporate the trustees of St. Matthew's Church in Halifax and to consolidate the trustees of Fort Massey United Church, St. Andrew's United Church, and St. Matthew's United Church. Bill number 193, an act respecting energy. Bill number 196, an act to amend Chapter 4 of the Acts of 1995-96, the Community Colleges Act. Bill number 198, an act respecting certain financial and other government measures. Bill number 200, an act to amend Chapter 3 of the Acts of 2018, the Cannabis Control Act. Bill number 201, an act respecting justice and social services. Bill number 203, an act to amend Chapter 1, 1992 supplement of the Revised Statutes 1989, the House of Assembly Act. Bill number 204, an act to amend Chapter 76 of the Acts of 1983, an act relating to taxation by the Town of Kentville of industrial and commercial properties in the Annapolis Valley Regional Industrial Park. Bill number 205, an act to amend Chapter 5 of the Acts of 2011, the Elections Act, and Chapter 1, 1992 supplement of the Revised Statutes 1989, the House of Assembly Act. Bill number 212, an act respecting administrative measures for housing.
Your Honor, after being graciously pleased to give your assent to the bills passed during this present session, it becomes my agreeable duty on behalf of His Majesty and loyal subjects, His faithful Commons of Nova Scotia, to present Your Honor a bill for the appropriation of supply granted in the present session for the support of the public service and to request Your Honor's assent thereto.
Bill 247, an act to provide for defraying certain charges and expenses of the public service of the province.
In His Majesty's name, I thank his loyal subjects. I accept their benevolence and assent to this bill.
Please rise. Her Honor, the Speaker.
I would like the members to join me in the playing of O Canada. You may be seated. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And before I move to adjourn debate, I'd like to thank all of the people who are in the House and made sure this sitting moved along so smoothly. On behalf of all members of the House, I want to acknowledge the pages. I know it's been an experience, and I know some are not. This is some of the pages' last session, so want to really thank them for that. Those at Ledge Television. Thank you for all you do. The folks at Hansard. The clerks of the House. The very patient James, David, Tamara, and Robin. I'm sure you'll get tired of us chirping in your ears all hours of the day and night. The Legislative Council office who drafts the bills we debate. The Legislative Library. And, Madam Speaker, Ann Van Uiterstein, I probably said your name wrong, Ann, sorry, who I affectionately have been calling Anna Banana for the last 13 years. This is her last session. She's retiring. I just want to say, Ann, thank you for all you've done. You have made my 13 years incredible. I am going to miss you with all of my heart and soul, and most members here, I think all members here would agree that you've done an incredible job, and enjoy retirement. You earned it. The House operations staff. Of course, the Sergeant at Arms. The incredible commissionaires. Our constituency coordinators. Who make our constituencies run while we're in this House, and I personally want to thank Melissa, the most patient constituency assistant in all of Nova Scotia. Thank you for all you do. The entire public service, Madam who do an incredible job for all of us and every single Nova Scotian. The men and women, the people who are in the public service are some of the most dedicated people in this province, and they are, I think we all can agree, the best in the country. Our families, of course, our families who, you know, during these sessions, it can be very difficult, especially those of us that live away from home and have to drive for hours and hours. And so we're here, they're here in HRM, and those of us with children, but just all of our families in general. We thank you from the bottom of our heart. We could not do this without you. Oliver, I'm coming home, buddy. Our families, oh, sorry, I said that. Before I close, I do want to call attention to the historic work that was done here in this House to create the new riding of Shetty Camp Marguerite Pleasant Bay. It's been a long time coming. It's been a long time coming, and we are happy. I think all of us are extremely happy that we've been able to complete this work this session. And with that, I move that this General Assembly be adjourned to meet again at the call of the Speaker.
The motion is that the House now adjourn to meet again at the call of the Speaker. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Contrary minded, please say nay. The motion is carried. We stand adjourned.